Journal articles can be pretty overwhelming, even for those of us who read them on a regular basis. Empirical articles might be even more overwhelming because of the terminology in the methods section and the statistical information in the results. If we think about the purpose of our reading, though, we can use our knowledge of APA style to focus our attention to make it less overwhelming. That said, we need to start by thinking about our purpose. That's what helps us determine what's important. In the case of this class, we'll read articles with the purpose of understanding the relevant information to gain knowledge from the results of studies. In other cases, we might be trying to understand common theoretical perspectives or other more complex issues. What's important is the more complicated question, but the remainder of this unit will help you answer that question and apply your knowledge of APA style to locate that information given the purpose I mentioned in the last slide, gaining knowledge from the results of studies. Typically, the author or authors use one of these four terms to signal their focus. In other words, to indicate what they think is important. The purpose or goal will likely be a more broad statement that could be rewritten as a question. When the focus is represented by a hypothesis, it will present a prediction of a relationship between two or more variables. There might be more than one hypothesis, and the authors might use the term prediction instead of hypothesis. So, to connect this to what we've already learned, given what you've learned about APA style, where would you expect to find the focus identified for the first time? In the first paragraph of the method section, the last paragraph of the results section, last paragraph or section of the introduction, or the first paragraph of the discussion? Although we can get a sense of the focus in the results section, and the opening paragraph of the discussion should provide a summary, the focus is typically presented for the first time in the last paragraph or the section of the introduction. APA style typically structures the introduction in such a way that explains the underlying thinking leading to that goal, purpose, question, or hypothesis. So in some ways, they signal a summary of the focus. This also helps us identify the variables of interest, which are the topic we're really interested in knowing more about. Variables are actually the whole point of research. They're the things that researchers think will vary in quantity or quality, and those variations are what we're describing, explaining, or predicting. It's helpful to remember that we talk about variables in two ways. Sometimes we'll be more abstract or vague, and sometimes we'll be more specific. We refer to the more abstract ideas as conceptual variables or conceptual definitions. Another way to think about the conceptual variables is that they're generally the topic we're interested in. It can be tricky to determine variations in general abstract topics, though. And as we learned earlier, that's why we use operational variables or operational definitions, the more specific terms of how we measure or manipulate a variable. For example, conceptually, we might say we're interested in differences in anxiety between heavy and non-heavy people. The operational definitions might be scores on the Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale for women who weigh 200 pounds or more compared to those who weigh less than 200 pounds, and for men who weigh more than 250 compared to those who weigh less than 250. If we were manipulating anxiety, we could tell participants they were going to prepare and deliver a speech. So, do you have to read all of the introduction? I hope you already know the answer to that is no. We just need to know what the authors are interested in. We can figure that out by looking for the goal, the purpose, question, and/or hypothesis. And then we can figure out more about what that tells us about the variables of interest. It's okay to look at other parts of the introduction if you'd like, but if that's overwhelming, you can just use strategic reading and keyword searches to find what you need to know.